My fiancée forwarded me an email with the subject line, "Thought you should know what kind of man you're marrying." She held my hands and asked, "Is this you?" Her eyes were red. She'd already been crying. Attached was a video. My face, my voice, doing things I'd never done. The deepfake was perfect. My name is Julian Reeves, 35 years old, cybersecurity specialist, and someone had just made me the target of the most sophisticated revenge attempt I'd ever seen. I didn't know who yet, but I knew how to trace digital fingerprints. And what I found would lead me to someone I'd worked with for 7 years. Someone who'd severely underestimated what happens when you attack a man who builds firewalls for a living. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday when Natalie showed me her phone. We were supposed to be celebrating. I'd just closed a major contract with a Fortune 500 client. Instead, I was watching pornographic video featuring someone who looked exactly like me. The technical quality was impressive. Whoever created it had access to high-resolution footage of my face, multiple audio samples of my voice, and sophisticated rendering software. "It's not me," I said. "I know what you look like, Julian." Her voice was shaking. "It's your face." "It's a deepfake. Artificial intelligence manipulation." I took her phone and paused the video at a specific frame. "Look at the eyes. There's a slight rendering artifact when I blink. And here," I zoomed in on my neck, "the shadows don't align properly with jaw movement." Natalie's processing this. Someone made this? On purpose? That was the question. I opened my laptop, already thinking through technical requirements. Creating a deepfake this sophisticated required source material, high-quality video and audio of me. The sender's address was a randomly generated Gmail account, but email headers told a different story. The email was sent through a VPN, connecting through servers in 3 different countries. Professional, but not expert level. My phone buzzed. Text from my business partner Raymond Clark. "Just saw something disturbing online." Then another from my college roommate. "Dude, is this real?" 3 more messages, all asking the same question. "It's spreading," Natalie whispered. I checked my professional email. 7 new messages from colleagues and clients. Subject lines ranging from concerned to immediate termination of services. Whoever did this hadn't just sent the video to Natalie. They distributed it across my entire professional network. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not panic. Clarity. Focus. "I need to make some calls," I said, starting with my attorney. "Your attorney?" "Someone just committed a federal crime. Creating and distributing non-consensual, intimate imagery using deepfake technology violates federal law. This is a felony." I grabbed my phone and dialed Oliver Grant, my attorney for the past 3 years. "Julian, I just saw—" "It's fake, Oliver. Deepfake. Someone is trying to destroy my reputation using AI-generated content." To the FBI in the morning, after I hung up, Natalie asked, "How can you be so calm?" I wasn't calm. Inside, I was furious. But fury without control is useless. "Because being upset doesn't solve problems," I said. "Evidence solves problems." I stayed up all night. While Natalie fell asleep around 3 a.m., I worked through technical analysis. Frame by frame, pixel by pixel. By dawn, I had a preliminary profile. They had professional video skills, access to my likeness, probably from my company website. They knew enough about technology to use a VPN, but not enough to completely sanitize metadata. And they had made one critical mistake. In trying to make the deepfake perfect, they'd included too much detail. The background showed a room, generic, neutral, but in one frame, reflected in a mirror for exactly 2 seconds, was a poster, partially visible. I isolated the frame, enhanced it, ran it through reverse image search. A concert poster. Specifically, a poster for a band called The Resonance, a local group that had played at exactly 3 venues in Portland over the past year. Someone had filmed this deepfake in a location where that poster was visible. I opened a new document and started making a list. Names, connections, anyone who had means, motive, and opportunity. One name kept surfacing. Someone I'd worked with for 7 years. Someone who had access to professional video equipment through their side business. Someone who'd had a falling out with me 6 months ago over a business decision. Gregory Hayes, my former coworker, my former friend. The man who was about to learn what happens when you weaponize technology against someone who understands it better than you ever could. Gregory Hayes and I met 7 years ago at a cybersecurity conference in Seattle. We started collaborating on projects. Eventually, we formalized it. Joint ventures on bigger contracts, shared resources, a loose partnership that worked well. Gregory was talented, creative, good with clients. He also had a hobby, videography. He'd shoot promotional videos for small businesses on weekends. Professional equipment, professional results. 6 months ago, everything changed. We'd been working on a major contract with a healthcare network. Midway through, I discovered a vulnerability in Gregory's portion of the work, a fundamental architectural flaw that would have left patient data exposed. I brought it to his attention privately first. Greg, we need to redesign this authentication layer. The current implementation has a privilege escalation vulnerability. He'd been defensive immediately. It meets the specifications. The specifications are inadequate. This will fail penetration testing. You're being paranoid. This is patient healthcare data. If this gets breached, people could die. The argument escalated. Eventually, I went over his head to the client's CTO, showed them the vulnerability, recommended the redesign. The client agreed with me. Gregory's portion of the work was scrapped and reassigned. Gregory was furious. He accused me of undermining him to steal the contract. "You cost me $200,000 in contract fees," he'd said during our last conversation. "You humiliated me in front of the client. This isn't over." Now, sitting in my home office at 6 a.m., staring at that partially visible concert poster, I ran a quick search through Gregory's social media. His girlfriend had tagged him in a photo 3 months ago. Background, the same poster. The video had been created in Gregory's apartment. I called Oliver at 7 a.m. "I know who did it. Are you certain?" 90%. "I need to gather more evidence before we go to the FBI." I spent the next week working 2 parallel tracks. During the day, I managed fallout from the video's distribution. I sent a formal statement to all my professional contacts explaining that the video was a deepfake, included technical analysis, and announced I was working with law enforcement. Most people believed me. 2 clients terminated their contracts. 1 conference uninvited me from speaking, but the majority understood. At night, I investigated. I created a comprehensive timeline of Gregory's activities, social media posts, financial transactions. He'd purchased Adobe Create and Isotope RX exactly 3 weeks before the video appeared. Equipment rent. I also discovered something interesting. Gregory had done this before, 4 years ago. He'd been involved in a similar incident with a former girlfriend. She'd accused him of creating fake nude images using Photoshop. The case never went to trial. She dropped the charges after Gregory settled out of court with a non-disclosure agreement. I tracked her down. Her name was Rachel Winters, living in Austin. I called her. "I don't want to talk about Gregory Hayes," she said immediately. "I understand. I just need to know if I'm dealing with someone who's done this before." Silence. Then, "He's doing it again, isn't he?" "Yes." Another long pause. I can't talk about specifics, but I can tell you this. He's obsessive. When he feels wronged, he doesn't let it go. He plans. He waits. And he always goes after the thing you care about most." After I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. Gregory hadn't created this deepfake in a moment of anger. He'd been planning it for months. This wasn't just revenge. It was calculated destruction. The next morning, I contacted Agent Robert Martinez at the FBI's Portland field office. Oliver had connected me with him. Martinez specialized in cybercrimes, particularly cases involving deepfakes. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Martinez was in his 40s, methodical. I walked him through everything: the timeline, the technical analysis, the metadata, the concert poster, Gregory's history. "This is solid work," Martinez said. "Most victims don't have the technical background to do this level of analysis. Most victims aren't cybersecurity specialists." True, but here's the issue. Everything you've gathered is circumstantial. It all points to Hayes, but it's not definitive proof. What would be definitive? The original source files. When someone creates a deepfake, they use training data, video clips, audio samples, reference photos. Those files would be on Hayes's computer. You need a warrant. I need probable cause for a warrant. What if I could get you more? Martinez looked at me carefully. What are you thinking? Gregory and I used to work together. We have shared access to a cloud storage system. I still have login credentials. Stop, Martinez interrupted. Whatever you're thinking, if it involves accessing systems without authorization, don't do it. That would be illegal. I nodded. Understood, but I wasn't understanding. I was planning. That night, I logged into our shared cloud storage. Technically, I had authorization. My credentials were still valid. The account was joint property. Gregory's personal folder was still there. I navigated to it. The folder structure was organized by date. I scrolled to 3 months ago. There was a folder labeled Production Work. I opened it. Inside were 3 subfolders: Source Material, Training Data, and Renders. My heart rate increased. These were exactly the naming conventions used in deepfake production workflows. What I found there would change everything. I opened Source Material first. Video files, dozens of them. Clips of me from various sources, my company website, a conference presentation, a podcast interview, all high resolution, all carefully curated. He'd been collecting footage of me for months. The training data folder contained AI models, massive files, gigabytes each, representing hundreds of hours of machine learning training. He'd fed my face, my voice, my mannerisms into a neural network until it could reproduce me perfectly. The renders folder contained the output, multiple versions of the deepfake video, test renders, failed attempts, and finally, the polished version distributed to my professional network. But there was something else, a document titled Distribution Plan.docx. I opened it. Inside was a detailed strategy for deploying the deepfake for maximum damage, timing, target list, every professional contact I had, categorized by importance. Follow-up actions if I tried to deny authenticity, contingency plans if law enforcement got involved. This wasn't just revenge. This was a campaign. And at the bottom of the document, dated 2 weeks before the video appeared, was a single line that made my blood run cold. Phase 2, target Natalie directly if Phase 1 doesn't break him. He was planning to go after my fiancé next. I screenshot everything, downloaded copies to an encrypted external drive. Then I called Agent Martinez. It's 1 a.m., he answered groggily. I found proof, everything. The source files, the AI training data, the renders, and a document outlining his entire plan. Silence. Then, how did you find it? Shared cloud storage system, joint account from our former partnership. I still have legal access. You're sure you had legal access? The account is joint property, registered to both our names, paid for by our former partnership LLC, which technically still exists. My credentials were never revoked. Martinez thought about this. Forward me everything. Screenshots, file metadata, timestamps. There's something else? He's planning a Phase 2, going after my fiancé directly. Forward me everything. Now. I sent him the encrypted files. The next morning, Agent Martinez called. We're moving forward. Federal prosecutor reviewed the evidence and agrees we have probable cause. We're executing a search warrant on Hayes' residence this afternoon. What should I do? Nothing. Stay away from this. Let us handle it. I spent that day in suspended animation. At 6:47 p.m., Agent Martinez called. We found everything. The equipment, the software, the files. He tried to delete some of it, but the forensic team recovered it. Hayes is in custody. We're charging him with interstate cyberstalking, identity theft, and unauthorized computer access. After the call ended, I sat in my office for a long time. 7 years of friendship, 7 years of collaborative work, all destroyed because he couldn't accept being wrong. Natalie found me there an hour later. What he did to you, to us, it was evil. It was calculated, I said. Which is worse? What he did required planning, effort, technical skill. He used his talents to hurt people. What happens to him now? Trial, probably a plea deal. Either way, he's going to prison. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the distribution plan document, about Phase 2 and what he'd been planning to do to Natalie. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to my office, started writing, not for the FBI, not for the trial, for other victims, a guide to detecting deepfakes, how to analyze metadata, how to spot rendering artifacts, how to preserve evidence, how to work with law enforcement. Every technical detail I'd learned, documented so that someone else facing this wouldn't have to figure it out alone. I published it on my blog at dawn. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times. Within days, I was getting messages from people who'd used it to identify their own deepfake situations. Something good, emerging from something terrible. That's how you win, not by matching evil with evil, but by turning experience into armor for the next person. 6 weeks after Gregory's arrest, I received a call from Agent Martinez. "We've got a complication. Hayes' attorney is pushing for a plea deal." "What kind of deal?" "Reduced charges, 3 years instead of 10. Why would the prosecutor agree to that?" "Trial risk. Deepfake cases are still relatively new in federal court. A guaranteed conviction, even with reduced time, might be preferable to a trial that could go either way." I thought about that. 3 years felt inadequate, but 3 years was still prison time. Still a felony conviction. Still a destroyed career. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think it's your call. The prosecutor will consider your input as the victim." "What happens if we go to trial and lose?" "Hayes walks free, and the precedent could make it harder to prosecute future deepfake cases." That decided it. This was bigger than my desire to see Gregory receive maximum punishment. "Tell the prosecutor I support the plea agreement," I said. "On one condition." "What's that?" "Hayes has to give a full allocution, detailed admission of everything he did, why he did it, how he planned it. I want it all on the record." The plea hearing was scheduled for the following month. Gregory would stand before a federal judge, admit to creating and distributing deepfake pornography of me, explain his methodology, and accept a 3-year prison sentence. Until then, I had work to do. The deepfake detection guide I'd published had generated significant interest. I wanted to create something more comprehensive, a video series explaining the technology, showing real examples, teaching people how to protect themselves. I reached out to several other cybersecurity experts, and we formed a collaboration. The goal was to create educational content that could be used by law enforcement, legal professionals, and victims. We called it the Digital Identity Defense Project. Within 2 months, we had funding from a major tech company, partnerships with 3 universities, and commitments from the FBI to provide input on investigative techniques. Natalie watched me work on the project late one night. "You're not angry anymore," she observed. "I'm still angry," I said, "but I'm channeling it into this, into making sure what happened to us doesn't happen to others." The night before Gregory's plea hearing, Oliver called with unexpected news. "Hayes' attorney wants to meet. Says Gregory wants to apologize in person before sentencing." "Absolutely not. That's what I told them. He can show remorse in court." The plea hearing took place on a cold November morning. The federal courthouse in Portland was imposing, all concrete and glass. I sat in the gallery with Natalie, Oliver beside us. Agent Martinez was there too, along with representatives from the prosecutor's office. Gregory was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. He'd lost weight. His face was drawn, pale. He didn't look at me. The judge reviewed the plea agreement. Then she asked Gregory if he understood he was waiving his right to trial, admitting guilt to serious federal charges, and accepting a 3-year prison sentence. "Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Hayes, this court requires a full allocution. I need you to explain, in your own words, what you did and why." Gregory stood, hands shaking slightly, and began to speak. He described how he'd felt humiliated when I'd exposed the security vulnerability, how he'd convinced himself I'd undermined him deliberately, how that resentment had festered into obsession. He explained learning deepfake technology, gathering footage of me, spending months perfecting the fake video. He admitted to creating the distribution plan, to targeting my professional network, to planning phase 2. "I wanted to destroy his reputation," Gregory said. "I wanted him to feel the humiliation I felt. I wanted to take away everything he cared about." The judge's expression was stern. "Did you consider the harm you were causing?" "I didn't care," Gregory admitted. "I only cared about making him suffer." "And now?" Gregory finally looked at me. His eyes were red. "Now I realize I destroyed my own life. Everything I accused Julian of doing to me, I actually did to myself." He was right about the security vulnerability. He was right to report it. And I've lost everything because I couldn't accept being wrong. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. She also ordered him to pay restitution, $75,000 to cover my legal fees, lost business income, and therapy costs for Natalie. Mr. Hayes, the judge said in closing, you used your technical skills to weaponize a relationship. You manufactured false evidence to destroy someone's reputation. This court will not tolerate such behavior. Gregory was led away. He didn't look back. Afterward, standing on the courthouse steps, Agent Martinez shook my hand. You handled this well. Most victims want maximum punishment. You focused on the bigger picture. Is there a bigger picture? I asked. Gregory's going to prison. I got justice. But there are probably hundreds of other victims out there who don't have my technical background. That's why the Digital Identity Defense Project matters, Martinez said. You're giving them tools. Natalie squeezed my hand. It's over now, but it wasn't over. Not really. Justice had been served, but the damage lingered. Some professional relationships never recovered. Some people would always wonder if the deepfake was real. That's the insidious power of synthetic media. Once you see something, you can't fully unsee it, even when you know it's false. But I'd learned something important. You can't control what people think. You can only control how you respond. And I'd responded by turning victimhood into advocacy, by documenting everything I'd learned, by helping others who'd faced similar attacks. That was the real victory, not the prison sentence, not the public vindication. The victory was refusing to let what happened define me. 3 months after Gregory's sentencing, the Digital Identity Defense Project launched publicly. We held a press conference at a tech incubator space in downtown Portland. The response exceeded expectations. Within a week, our website had 200,000 visitors. Within a month, we'd been contacted by law enforcement agencies in 7 different states. What surprised me most were the personal messages. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of people reaching out to share their own experiences with deepfakes and synthetic media manipulation. Each story reinforced why this work mattered. I partnered with Agent Martinez to develop training materials for FBI field offices. We created a standardized protocol for deepfake investigations. Natalie joined the board of an organization called Image-Based Abuse Coalition. Within 6 months, she was testifying before state legislatures about the need for stronger deepfake laws. We're turning pain into purpose, she said one evening. We'd rescheduled the wedding for May. Spring in Portland, with cherry blossoms blooming. Small ceremony, close friends and family. Raymond and I expanded our business. The notoriety from the case had brought unwanted attention, but it had also established us as experts in synthetic media security. 6 months after the sentencing, I received an unexpected email. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Gregory Hayes. It had been sent from a federal prison email system. The subject line read, "No expectation of response." The email was short. "Julian, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I've spent the past 6 months in prison education classes, learning about the actual harm deepfakes cause, not abstract harm, real damage to real people. I understand now what I did to you and Natalie in a way I didn't during the investigation or trial. You were right about the security vulnerability. You were right to report it. And I destroyed my life, your reputation, and Natalie's trust because I couldn't accept being wrong. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know that I finally understand." Gregory. I read it 3 times. Then I showed it to Natalie. "What do you think?" she asked. "I think he's scared. Prison is probably forcing him to confront what he did. Do you believe it's genuine? Maybe, but it doesn't change anything. Are you going to respond?" I thought about that. Part of me wanted to write back, to tell Gregory exactly how much damage he'd caused. But what would that accomplish? He was in prison. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. "No," I said finally. "Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt." I deleted the email and moved on. The following month, I was invited to testify before a congressional subcommittee examining the regulation of synthetic media. I flew to Washington, D.C. with Natalie. The hearing room was intimidating. High ceilings, wood paneling, rows of representatives seated above the witness table. I explained deepfake technology in accessible terms, showed examples of how it's created, demonstrated detection techniques. Then I outlined policy recommendations, mandatory watermarking of AI-generated content, criminal penalties for malicious deepfakes, funding for detection research. One representative asked, "Mr. Reeves, you're a victim of this technology, but you're also advocating for research. Isn't that contradictory? Shouldn't we just ban it entirely?" "Banning technology has never worked," I replied. "Deepfake tools are open source, globally distributed. What we need is education, detection, and enforcement. And you believe that's possible?" "I know it's possible. Because I did it. As a private citizen with commercially available tools, I traced a sophisticated deepfake back to its creator in less than 2 weeks. Imagine what law enforcement could do with proper training and resources." The hearing lasted 3 hours. Afterward, several representatives approached me privately. "You made an impact," Natalie said on the flight home. 2 months later, the Deepfake Accountability Act was introduced with bipartisan support. It included many of the recommendations I'd testified about. The bill wouldn't solve everything, but it was progress. Our wedding took place on a Saturday in May, exactly as planned. Small ceremony in a botanical garden, with cherry blossoms creating a canopy of pink and white. Raymond stood as my best man. 40 guests, all people who'd supported us through the worst period of our lives. During the vows, I looked at Natalie and saw someone stronger than the woman I'd proposed to 2 years earlier. "I promise to protect you," I said, "not just from external threats, but from my own mistakes. I promise to communicate, to listen, to never assume I know better without hearing your perspective first." Natalie's vows made me tear up. "I promise to trust you, even when trust is hard. To remember that doubt is a weapon our enemies use, but faith is armor we build together." After the ceremony, Agent Martinez approached. "Congratulations. You've earned this happiness. Thanks for everything you did. You did most of it yourself. I just provided federal authority." The Digital Identity Defense Project had grown into a full nonprofit. We'd partnered with universities to develop better detection algorithms. We'd trained law enforcement in 12 states. Most importantly, we'd helped 147 confirmed victims of deepfake abuse identify their attackers and pursue legal action. That number would grow. This technology wasn't going away, but so were the defenses. As I danced with Natalie that evening, under string lights and cherry blossoms, I thought about how far we'd come. We'd survived something designed to destroy us, and we'd turned it into something that would protect others. That was justice. Real, meaningful, lasting justice. Not because Gregory was in prison, but because we'd ensured fewer people would face what we'd faced. 2 years after Gregory's arrest, the parole board reviewed his case. Agent Martinez called to inform, "The hearing is next month. As the victim, you have the right to submit a statement." I discussed it with Natalie that evening. "Do you want to see him?" she asked. "No, but I want to make sure the parole board understands the full scope of what he did." I spent a week writing the victim impact statement. Not emotional, factual. I outlined the professional damage, 2 lost clients, dozens of strained relationships. The personal damage, therapy costs, the postponed wedding, lingering doubt. But I also wrote about what came after. The Digital Identity Defense Project, the legislative changes, the thousands of victims we'd helped. Gregory Hayes tried to destroy me, I concluded. Instead, he forced me to become someone who could protect others from people like him. The work I do now exists because of his attack. Every victim we help, every attacker we catch, every law we pass, all of it traces back to that decision he made. I don't forgive him, but I've used what he did to create something meaningful. The parole board denied his request. He'd served the full 3 years. I felt neither satisfaction nor disappointment. It just was. The Digital Identity Defense Project celebrated its 2nd anniversary with a gala fundraiser. We'd grown to 14 full-time staff, partnerships with 5 major universities, annual budget of $2.3 million. During my speech that evening, I looked out at the audience. Victims we'd helped, attorneys we'd trained, technologists we'd collaborated with. 2 years ago, I said, I was a victim of a crime that didn't have a name yet. Today, because of this organization, that's changed. We've helped secure federal legislation. We've trained thousands of investigators. We've assisted thousands of victims. But this is just the beginning. Our mission is to stay ahead of that curve, to make sure that no future victim faces what I faced alone. The fundraiser exceeded our goals. Flying home that night, Natalie and I talked about the future. Do you still think about Gregory? She asked. Sometimes, but not often. No regrets? About how I handled the investigation? Number, about the original conflict with Gregory? Some. I could have been more diplomatic. But the flaw needed to be corrected. Yes, patient safety was non-negotiable. But there are ways to be right without making enemies. 3 years after the attack, Gregory was released from federal prison. I received no notification. I heard about his release secondhand through Agent Martinez. Hayes got out last week. His parole conditions prohibit him from using any social media or creating any content involving deepfakes. Is he a threat? Not to you specifically. He knows that any contact would violate his parole. I didn't look him up, didn't track his movements. He was part of my past, not my present. The work continued. The Digital Identity Defense Project kept growing. Natalie's advocacy secured deepfake laws in 7 more states. We helped more victims, caught more attackers, changed more laws. When I couldn't sleep, I'd think about that email Gregory had sent from prison. I wondered if prison had actually changed him. I'd never know, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that we'd taken something terrible and built something protective from it. We'd turned victimhood into advocacy, destruction into defense. That was the real victory, not Gregory's imprisonment, not the legal vindication. The victory was refusing to let what happened stop us from building something better. Some battles you win by fighting back harder than your attacker ever expected. This was one of them.